Provinces across Canada are introducing direct-to-consumer alcohol sales, removing interprovincial trade barriers that prevented the free movement of alcohol across the country. So 9 premiers say they will allow more Canadian brewers, wineries, and distillers to sell alcohol directly to consumers outside of their home provinces. The move is part of a bigger effort to increase interprovincial trade, and as Donald Trump continues to threaten Canada with hefty tariffs. And for more on how businesses are reacting to all of this, let's talk to Ron Kubek. He is the owner of Lightning Rock Winery, and he's in Summerland, British Columbia. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Ron.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on.
Ron, let's start with this new wave of tariffs being threatened by Trump in retaliation to Canada taking American booze off the shelves. As a business owner, what do you make of this move?
Well, first, we were very dismayed, and I had to work with my U.S. rep, who is now putting together another order so we can get it down there before the new tariffs. But the ironic thing is, Chris, is that the 50% tariff that Mr. Trump is wanting to put on is still less than what every other province puts on us in Canada. And so, the illusion, or the free trade illusion that's coming out of Charlottetown, is really just that. I mean, this is just taking what they had said they were going to do last year, and they're just regurgitating it and repackaging it, but it's still nothing. But the fact is that it says the legal loopholes for allowing me to ship my wine across the country means I've got to get registered, register every wine, do all these different things. But it still keeps the provincial markups in place. So if the premiers were serious, they would really open up Canada as an answer to Mr. Trump, but they're not. They haven't. It's a free trade illusion what they're doing right now.
And Ron, take us through the day-to-day logistical headache of having these new threats imposed on small business owners in general, and that it could take effect by the end of the month. I mean, you talked about having to talk to your different partners and staff and trying to make sense of these different rules and regulation. What is that like for you on a day-to-day basis?
Well, we have a rep who brings our wine into Washington State. We're in 7 locations in Washington State right now. And he and I were working very hard on getting a pallet or 2 of wine done quickly so that we can get that down there before the August 19th deadline. We had been starting to work on our plan for the holidays and a large shipment going back to an East Coast U.S. state. And of course, that's now on hold. So it's disappointing to have that tariff in there, but it's even more disappointing to have the Canadian premiers still do nothing. And that's the dirty little secret, is all of these agreements do nothing to help us. And so as I talk to my staff, we're sort of between a rock and a hard place. We've just lost our USA channel, and the Canadian premiers are now making it harder to do business in Canada.
And take us through that perspective, because it's interesting that you would say that even as 9 premiers, including BC's premier, agreed to allow direct-to-consumer sales across provinces to help tackle those interprovincial trade barriers that you're talking about. Why is this not enough?
Well, Chris, if you look at the document, Article 6 allows them to put new taxes, new fees, new registrations. And in fact, British Columbia is worse off. Before this, since 2012, British Columbia, Manitoba, and New Brunswick allowed wine to come into the province tariff-free. The new agreement allows British Columbia now to put its provincial markup, 89%, or whatever they deem that they want to put on it. So in fact, British Columbia came out of this worse off. The only premier in Canada that's doing anything really is Doug Ford, and I've been talking to his government about trying to get our wine on the shelves there. And at least last year, when the tariffs first came down from Mr. Trump, he opened up Ontario grocery stores, convenience stores, and big box stores to Ontario-made product. We asked our BC government to do that, and they didn't do it. We asked other governments to do that, and they didn't do it. So it's, Alberta moved forward with it with a flat tax. They got rid of the ad valorem, and Alberta is actually, it's expensive, but it's actually the cheapest province for us to ship to, other than Manitoba or New Brunswick, which we're allowed to under free trade. But people got to realize that what this is just an extension of the promise by June 1st of free trade, which they didn't do. And, BC has made it worse off. And we're hoping that Mr. Ford continues on what he's doing in Ontario, because at least we might have a chance for something to happen in Canada. And as a winery owner, it's disappointing that, it costs more money to send, to send my money across Canada. I mean, even with the dirty secret is with the 50% tariff, it's still cheaper to sell it to the U.S.
I mean, I think you're echoing the frustration of so many business owners across the country. Ron, I want to ask you, because in many ways, your perspective and your point of view is what really matters given the kind of impact that you guys feel with these tariffs. So if you were to be writing this deal, what would be in it?
I'd immediately allow Canadian-made wine, Canadian-made beer, Canadian-made spirits, cider, to be treated as domestic product with no provincial markup. Allow us to collect the HST or the PST. In BC, the PST is 42% higher than the regular PST. But allow us to collect that and stop collecting the 71% to 300% markups that all these provincial liquor boards doing. We could have a great Canadian market. The dirty secret is another dirty secret, lots of them, is that Canada only drinks 12% of its own wine. Countries like France, 75%, Australia, 90%. We truly have a chance. This is a chance of a lifetime to finally fix something that's been broken for decades. And I just ask the premiers to get serious about it and talk to real people who are affected, not bureaucrats trying to protect provincial monopolies.
Well, and that's it exactly. It's interesting to listen to you, Ron, with such a sort of a raw perspective on how this is impacting you. As you must be watching the premiers meeting happening in Charlottetown, as you're hearing premiers say that there is a united front among leaders across this country. What do you make of what they're saying and then what they're actually doing?
This is no different than the MOU, Memorandum of Uselessness, that was signed last year to allow free trade by June of this year. I call on the provincial premiers to, because some of them are good people, is to get the bureaucrats out of the room, to say we truly want a Canadian market, and to get the provincial markups, the 71 to 300% markups that we have, and make Canada a truly strong market. The Canadian wine sector, for example, is worth $10.5 billion. They said if we got rid of provincial markups, we could be $13.5, $14 billion. It would allow us to compete with other countries that subsidize, like the European Union, that subsidizes their industry. It allows us to compete with the big wineries from the U.S. that come in there. And so the Canadian premiers have a chance. And the question is are they going to actually do something, or are they going to provide lip service? And, this is a chance. Anything short of getting rid of the provincial markups and all of the registration and all of the other things is a nothing burger. If we can just collect the tax, and the government should collect the HST or the PST that goes into each province. Why is that not enough? Why do they have to have 71 to 300%? Why can that not be enough? So I ask on the premiers, please get serious. Talk to people like myself in the industry. Talk to the people like, the person in charge of Wine Growers Canada, Wine Growers BC. Talk to the chair of either of those organizations, who are wonderful gentlemen, and say, what do you really want? And we could sit down and have this solved in a day. But the problem is you've got to deal with the provincial bureaucrats that are trying to protect their monopolies. And so I ask the provincial premiers, who are all good people, to please get the bureaucrats out of the room, bring in business people like myself, and we can truly solve this and make truly a great place, truly make Canada a great place to do business, because that's all I want to do. As a lifelong Canadian, I'm just trying to do business in my own country. And right now, it's still cheaper with the tariffs to do business in the United States.
Well, Ron, let me ask you this. In your opinion, what is the barrier to getting voices like you in the room? And do you think that it can possibly happen within the next 30 days, or I believe it's 27 days now before these tariffs take effect?
I think that the provincial premiers have to stop listening to the bureaucrats. In British Columbia, for example, they turned over the decision to the head of the British Columbia liquor distribution bench, the BCLDB. And all they're interested in doing is being tax collectors. We look at, in our industry, we look at all of the provincial monopolies simply as tax collectors. And, getting them out of the room and getting true business people in there. The government says, well, we have to protect our $800 million in markup in British Columbia. Well, the BC market's worth $3.7 billion. And, I guess, what do Canadians want? Do Canadians want more jobs, more opportunity, more great tasting products, or do they want more taxes? And all that came out of this agreement, and the premiers are, applauding themselves is a new chance to tax and regulate. So I would say, listen, get the premiers together, get a few businesses. I mean, the other issue is, Chris, is a lot of people like in my position are afraid to speak up because they're afraid of the government. And I'm not willing to call out something that's wrong. I was always taught by my parents, call out something that's wrong. And what the premiers have done is nothing. This is a chance of a lifetime. Mr. Trump has shown us that he's going to do what he wants to do. Now maybe Canada should start taking care of its own instead of doing stuff around the world. Let's start taking care of its own. We could have a great country for Canadian product if we just got the bureaucrats out of the way.
And we have to wrap, Ron, but I do have to ask you, given everything that you've said, if you are not invited into the room within the next 30 days, what do you plan to do?
Still keep doing the pressure, Chris. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me. Thank you for the people that have reached out. I'm still going to be beating that drum because I think that, when people come to the winery, they think, oh, free trade, the premiers promised it last year. Didn't happen. They think that now it's happening. And when people came up yesterday, I went, here, look at the deal. And so the fact of the matter is I'm still going to be talking to people. I'm not giving up. I truly believe in a strong Canada, and I will fight for it so that winery owners like myself from coast to coast can ship their product into other provinces. We're very blessed in Canada that we have people who buy Canadian. The only problem is right now the provinces get in the way, and with this new deal, they're getting even worse in the way. We were better off before this deal than we are now.
All right, Ron, well, I know that it's not always easy to be as vocal as you have been, so I appreciate you sharing your perspective and your story with us this morning.
I thank you for the time, and, we'd love to host you if you ever get a chance to come out to the Okanagan and enjoy some great wine.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.